We're going to start, so please take your seat. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to wait a few more seconds. We've become accustomed to the seat, so. Okay, front row for Adam. Look at this. Okay. Good. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending our third panel of the day. So yeah, this panel is around DAOs. So the title is AmsterDAO. I'm not too proud to have come up with this name, but I think DAOs in the past year have evolved quite a bit, especially also of an area to invest in, both from our side of Maven 11, as well as the retail. We saw a lot of retail participation in DAOs, and also in participating in actively also contributing to these DAOs. And I'm happy to say that today we have 3 representatives of DAOs out of DeFi who can give us their perspective on both the benefits but also the challenges that a DAO brings. And I'm excited to see how they see the space. So, without further ado, thank you for joining. Can you maybe introduce yourselves? Let me start with you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Brianna. I'm on the founding team of Faye, which is part of the Tribe DAO. That includes Rari Capital, so the permissionless lending markets, and then the decentralized stablecoin Faye. We're focused on creating new infrastructure and liquidity for DAOs to evolve and flourish.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Guilherme. I'm from Potion Labs. I'm co-founder and CTO there. Potion is an options AMM. It's focused on making automated risk management accessible to everyone. We're using a special type of bonding curves derived from the Kelly criterion. I think they probably represent a primitive in DeFi derivatives. In our case, when launching Potion, we were looking for ways to radically decentralize the genesis of the protocol itself from the very beginning, as opposed to doing it progressively, right? And I guess what that meant for us was kind of painfully removing ourselves from being an actor in the center, and kind of limit our remit to what we actually do best, which is developing open source software and products, and actually staying away from, for instance, issuing ERC20 tokens, or deploying the protocol, or taking care of and monetizing operations of the protocol. And I think this lack of central leadership is actually a challenge that obviously pops up in these sort of processes. We mitigated that by bringing highly varied and highly sophisticated people like yourself, guys, from Maven in the ecosystem. I think that eventually has turned out to be the right checks and balances for the ecosystem to kind of run in a self-organized DAO governance. I think it's going well. And if anything, I guess that my spicy take on DeFi DAOs is that quote-unquote progressive decentralization to me sometimes feels like using old models in kind of new rails, and I'm a bit less excited about that. And also, I expect that the financial systems that could emerge from that vision maybe wouldn't be that different from the traditional ones we have, especially in terms of being open, being truly permissionless, and basically staying as unregulated as possible. If DeFi DAOs kind of keep the DAO label, but essentially use all startup vertical structures, I think that's basically gonna eventually make them be closer to startup traditional regulation,
okay.
And that may actually hinder DeFi due to the strong regulatory headwinds that we all see and feel.
You already went into some of the questions that I had. This is great to see. And you?
Yeah, I'm Ray from DAO, so I'm one of the co-founders and core developers. At Tracer, we're building permissionless derivatives infrastructure. So we're building a suite of primitives, a suite of tools that allow everyone to access derivatives. And yeah, in similar vein to Potion, we were sort of took a DAO first approach and we're a DAO from day one, essentially.
Okay, but you say we're a DAO from day one. How do you define what a DAO is? Because I feel like in the industry, a lot of people, they say that they're a DAO, but they're not really a DAO, or other people have like a very strange concept of what a DAO is. So what personally defines a DAO for you? What is a DAO?
Yeah, I guess in my head, the biggest thing about DAOs is the ease of access. I think that's the key point. We're still trying to get to a world where everyone in a DAO is contributing like the most value possible. But I think the fact that anyone can come in and contribute as much value as they want to give is sort of the key thing for me. So making the barriers really low, making sure anyone can just come in, even if it's only an hour a week, or maybe they want to do 50 hours a week, as long as there's easy access to contribute to something, then I think you've essentially got a DAO, and that can be as simple as a Discord to start. You don't need to go all the way to a token model and having a treasury.
Yeah, so I think like kind of building on that as well, it's like you have the token model, you have the on-chain voting where any protocol change, any parameter, you have to have an on-chain vote. You see some governance innovations where people are moving to more of like an optimistic approval governance, or like what we're doing at the Tribe DAO, we call it liquid democracy, liquid representative democracy, where we're empowering sub-DAOs to make decisions, to kind of to innovate more and not have to do everything on-chain for each vote, so like breaking it out into different sub-DAOs. But I also think like people are going to be able to contribute in different ways, from just like traditional like liquidity mining, where you're incentivizing people to like stake their tokens in different places. We're going to start seeing like network mining, where it's going to be like people are participating in part of a DAO in like a wider way, where it's like you're sending a tweet or you're playing a game and like you're being incentivized for that kind of behavior as well. And that's all going to be part of like being part of a DAO and supporting the project.
Interesting. And for you, Guillaume?
Yeah, totally agreed with these points. I guess that a DAO is kind of a combination of several things, and it depends on the area where it's operating. In the case of DeFi, I think they are demanded to be kind of product builders or maintainers, perhaps operators, but in my opinion, they should keep like a ethos of complete decentralization in order to allow us to explore what they really are, right? We don't really know what DAOs are in terms of social structures, what they are capable about, especially intertwined with token incentives and the blockchain in general. So I think we need to allow for them to express themselves.
Yeah, I also see kind of, sorry to just another point to make, is like DAOs becoming more of like capital allocators. So the DAO will make a decision to have like a service provider that's like doing some marketing for the DAO, or that's like doing like core protocol development eventually. And then if they're not producing and they're not like hitting these KPIs or whatever it is that they're supposed to hit, then the DAO would like pull back that capital.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I think you made a good point, like also with the ease of access, Ray. I think indeed DAOs can get very easy to get into, but because we also see more and more this war for attention, right, within DeFi, within DAOs as well, how do you ensure that you retain the talent that you have in your DAO? Isn't that also a challenge for DAOs nowadays, where you see a lot of people going back and forth between projects?
Yeah, I think a big thing for us has been identifying people that are actually very passionate about what you're doing versus people that are sort of, in a way, incentive mining or chasing the next thing. You can kind of feel that quite quickly. Not that you should disclude anyone, but really put in effort into people that are there for the right reason and want to help build it with you. We've had a few contributors that just wandered into our Discord and then they ended up at ETH Denver with us and drove halfway across the US to actually contribute to what we're building. So that's been a big thing for us, I guess, identifying that early, but then also giving them the resources they need. I think a lot of the time, because there's so much noise in DAOs, people can actually just get lost. You wander into something you're passionate about, you try contribute, you try figure out what's going on, and if you don't capture those people quickly, they sort of just get lost in the abyss. They don't really know how to contribute. So giving them attention from the core team, and just giving them resources to empower them to do what they want to do, really.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good question. And in our case, like, I think we have the added challenge that we are actually kind of trying to not participate that much in the DAO itself. So for example, I agree that it's very easy to spot people who are willing to contribute stuff in the long run, and they are capable, and obviously probably they also have a nice stake in the project. But in our case, like, we cannot really cater to them and let them feel comfortable. It seems like they need to do that by themselves. And what I'm excited about is the chances that we're given with all the incredible tooling that we have around DAOs nowadays, for that to happen by itself. So, you know, we were discussing this just a minute ago. Like, there's a variety of stakeholders in our DAO, and some people are more institutional, some people are, you know, more retail people, or just enthusiasts, or people who you don't really know who they are. And the sophisticated stakeholders, you know, maybe they bring some reputation because they are the lead of the seed round or whatever. But then in terms of contribution, like, since everything is public and this sort of stuff is visible and is publicly there, and so maybe another partner, another VC that wasn't actually the lead eventually becomes the lead, and I think that needs to have an impact on reward schemes and things like that.
Yeah, so I think for us, like, it's not necessarily we have like a contributor issue. I think if we were just speaking about things that we've seen in the DAO that we could improve upon, it's definitely the way that we do governance. So we're trying to innovate and do optimistic approval and have like a multi-sig that has permissions to do certain things. And then moving to this, we're using Orca for pods for our liquid representative democracy, and being able to move faster, that leads to more decentralization and innovation. So that's where we kind of saw an issue before with everything having to be an on-chain tally vote, to now that we're moving to this new model.
Okay, so DAO tooling can help in organizing your DAO in a sense, but like, what is still something that you miss on a maybe day-to-day basis that is not just replaceable by a Web2 alternative that already exists and maybe now tailored to DAOs? For example, we get a lot of feedback from people that, for example, payments to DAO contributors is one. But what do you still see as a gap within the DAO tooling market?
Yeah, so I guess like for us, we're actually building out a product called Tribe Launch, and just learning from our experiences and how we're going to be able to enable these DAOs to be able to launch and like not have to worry about setting up like their governance infrastructure, not even having to code, like having their stablecoin liquidity, having their AMM liquidity. They're going to be able to like plug into everything that we have within the Tribe community and then focus on what they're actually trying to build. And I think that's going to lead to autonomy too, where these teams can focus on what they want to focus on and leave the other things to a different service provider team of a DAO. So.
Okay. Any other views on this?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned before, payments has been a big pain point for us. We use Utopia and we've used a few tools. There's still somewhat a bit of friction there, and I think a lot of that lies in the fact that everything is really atomic and it's very difficult to recover from any mistakes that happen. So I guess building tooling that automates away a lot of those pains is pretty important for us, and a lot of progress has been made, but I think there's still a lot of admin overhead to process things that in like a traditional business would be a lot easier.
Okay.
Yeah, in our case, like, to mention something else, I guess it could be like the finding proper legal entities for a DAO is probably something that we will need more and more. Like in our case, we find ourselves, like, we have our own R&D company, for example, and we want to be integrated within the DAO ecosystem, but it's pretty hard for a traditional venture to kind of do that if the DAO doesn't have a mid-space entity to kind of do deals with, right? So these sort of areas for us have been pretty hard to research on and to find clarity on. So this brings this sort of legal uncertainty that kind of hinders a little bit the innovation from the founder's perspective, I think.
Okay, no, I get that. And then you're talking about making deals, and I know, for example, with Tribe or Tracer, you're also very involved into making deals with other DAOs as well. So, how do you see that going, especially in DeFi, right, where everything is composable, everything is trying to work together? Is that also, like, do you purposely go out and search to make these deals with other DAOs, or is it maybe easier to do so, or are there also challenges in there?
Yeah, like for us, we're like very DAO to DAO focused. Like we're building this infrastructure and liquidity layer for DAOs, and that's our go-to-market. That's what we're here to build, and We want people to be able to spin up a DAO without even having to write a line of code of Solidity and know that they have like their governance figured out, that they have their liquidity mining figured out, that they have their liquidity figured out, so there's can be good trading on their tokens, and be able to just focus on what they're trying to bring to market.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for us, a lot of the sort of DAO to DAO relationships have come quite organically. Similar to Tribe, we're sort of building base layer infrastructure that other people can build on top of. So there is that outreach from people. But then I think also like a lot of, in some ways, chance encounters, like someone sees something that's interesting, you reach out and you can sort of build relationships that way. I think because all of DeFi is composable, it's always positive sum. So everyone's sort of looking for people to collaborate with and they want to work together to build things out. And because integrations aren't as difficult as in like the traditional finance world, it does make that a lot easier.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's very, very nice what you guys are doing in terms of DAO to DAO relationships, and they definitely have to do with, building or integrating with whatever the other DAO is building. So I think that's a nice way to connect DAOs in general. Also, if the contributors of two different DAOs are kind of building in the two spaces, then they get merged more easily, I guess, and that's one of the exciting things, that you can jump and collaborate here and there, and you can create these underlying networks that are not subject to corporate dealings or stuff like that. They emerge organically from the bottom up, hopefully.
Okay. And what do you think is the biggest misconception people actually have about DAOs? Like from working within a DAO and people like maybe looking from outside, what is the biggest misconception there?
I think my
yeah, go ahead.
I think my biggest one is probably that decentralization has its positive aspects, but you also need small units, I guess similar to what you were saying before, Brie, that small units that have agency to drive things. If everything is a DAO-wide vote that requires people to partake and then you have multiple engineering teams involved, it just means that DAOs end up moving very slow. So having the decentralization aspect involved, but giving teams agency to move, I think is the big thing for me. And I think we've seen that change over the past probably year in DAOs. Originally, everything was this monolithic DAO. And I mean, a lot of the original big projects saw problems with that, and it really slowed down progress. And then you sort of saw this like DeFi 2.0 come through because we could move quicker. But now some of those projects are starting to get to the same point. So I think there's going to be a fair few changes in how DAOs just operate and run, keeping the decentralization, but giving agency to move faster.
So you're saying we have to go from a monolithic DAO model to like a modular DAO model? Or?
Yeah, modular DAO, sub DAO, something like that.
Okay. Brie?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement to that. I think this is like touching on some of the points that I've already made within this discussion. So I think that like we're going to see DAOs be treated differently. Like a DAO will be a service provider to the protocol, and I don't think that we're going to be like having to do like salary discussions and like payments shouldn't be like on that level, and there shouldn't be every single person involved in it. I think like DAOs need to like figure out a way to not have every single thing need to be talked about in the public. I think they should be empowered to like make these decisions within small groups.
Yeah, no, I think most of the misconceptions they arise from the fact that these kind of structures are new, and people tend to benchmark them against traditional structures like a traditional startup, and we actually sometimes get people from the community kind of instinct us to become more like these traditional structures, and I guess most of the time is due to confusion with the old kind of benchmark that you have in mind. So experimentation is basically needed. Yeah,
no, for sure. And like, what advice would you give maybe someone here in the audience to someone that is wanting to start a DAO or start a project and is thinking about, should I go with like a typical structure or with a DAO structure? What advice would you give to them day one, which you might want to know when you started back in the day?
I definitely think 100% go with a DAO structure, but keep it simple and don't overcomplicate it early. We were a DAO from day one, but made the mistake of adding too many layers when really the community that cared about what we were doing was so small. Start as simple as possible and add layers of complexity as you need them. I think, again, as long as you have a very low barrier to entry, then you're doing the right thing. People can come in and they can contribute, and as you grow, you'll start to pick out problems. Like, we need to make a sub-DAO for this, we need to standardize this process. But I think going too over the top from day one just to be a DAO can actually slow you down, and your DAO becomes the product and not what you're actually trying to build. So yeah, that would be my tip.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like, I think building the DAO is a ton of work, so you probably need to do things piece by piece, and at the beginning, for sure, the best way for you to move forward. Like in our case, we were in a DAO from day one. We were a development company, and we just developed our product, and probably before we ended up developing, we already noticed that there were some problems not being a DAO, actually, if we wanted to operate that product. So that's when we had to start the DAO design effort, which is obviously big. So yeah, piece by piece.
Yeah, I think that was great advice that they both just gave. And then I would say, like, it would be good to come talk to the Tribe DAO as well. That's exactly what we're building. Like, we're going to have like an iOS for DAO operators that you can plug and play into the different infrastructure that you want. Like, if you want to have like the last liquidity, the AMM liquidity, the lending liquidity, your governance, your liquidity mining, your token incentivization layer, we're kind of building that like battle-tested infrastructure for you to be able to spin up your DAO super easily. So would be happy to talk.
Okay. That's great to hear. I think also some confusion often in DeFi is the difference between what is now a community and what is a DAO. Like, some people call their community their DAO. Do you see that the same way, or is there like a differentiation in your view? Or like your user base, is that a DAO as well? Like, how do you see that?
Yeah, I guess I'll take it. I kind of see them being very similar, to be honest. Okay. I think your community isn't necessarily contributing, but they make up a big part of what your DAO actually is. So that's probably how I'd partition them. Like, community can just be people hanging out, talking, partaking, but that sort of is what makes your DAO. So I see them very similar. There's probably small nuances, but we sort of consider everyone just part of the DAO.
Yeah, I think they're all connected. All the groups are connected. It's what makes the project what the project is, and I think it's all under the DAO umbrella.
Okay.
The community is like the social layer, is like the population of a country, right? And then the DAO is actually the governance system that they use. Okay. So instead of using a feudal system or a liberal democracy, they may use other ways to govern themselves. And that's what we put under the DAO umbrella.
Taking that maybe one step further, right? Is DAO also differentiates itself due to governance? We see in DeFi especially that the governance participation is quite low. How do you see that this can actually be improved in the future, especially when you have like these big whales that can come in and just vote, and then people might be disincentivized to also vote because they think their vote doesn't matter. So how do you think that can be a challenge and how that can be improved?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we're doing with using Orca with our new governance process that we're having out. So we're going to have these sub-DAOs that are incentivized to make certain decisions, and then a nope DAO. So instead of voting yes on every proposal, which historically most proposals that go up, they go through and they're passed, and then there's of course voter fatigue that you just mentioned, that every single time, like having people pull out their ledgers and having them to type in and just push things through in a yes fashion is not like the way that we should be moving. And so what we're doing is we're moving to a way that we have these groups that are incentivized, and then not incentivized, but they're empowered to make decisions on certain things. And then there's going to be a nope DAO. So if there's something that you don't want to go through, that's when you're going to vote to have it stopped.
Yeah. So I think DAOs, like they have this particular way of organizing that I think right now, like we, at least from DeFi, like we've seen them organize around a sort of plutocracy naturally because of the way incentives are distributed as tokens and such. But I can see a very near future where probably this can change into kind of more contribution-based governance, and there can be other ways to assess what's the voting power of every agent in the DAO. Like we were just having this keynote chat about creditworthiness. I think in general, reputation on-chain reputation is going to be fundamental for DAOs and for new ways of governance that are more inclusive and successful.
Yeah, for us it's definitely similar. Moving away from the one token, one vote model is probably the big key to reducing voter apathy. I think, like Brianna said, there's no real incentive for you to vote if you're a small token holder when most things are going to go through. So the first step is just move to optimistic voting. Everything's a yes unless there's enough of a no vote to stop it. But then also giving people power to actually boost up their voting power. So whether that be through contribution or whether that be through locking up tokens for extended periods like the VE model, the quicker we get down that path, there's a lot more incentives for people to actually participate, where if you're a small token holder and you have one vote and it's probably going to be a yes anyway, there's no real incentive for you to do anything.
Okay, no, that's a very good point. Maybe looking at time, we have 2 minutes left. I would like to ask you all, what is something that you've been working on within your DAO that really excites you, maybe for the foreseeable future or like in years' time, that you really want to achieve as a DAO yourself?
I think for us it's definitely this move to sub-DAOs. We've only just got the stages where we have like a growth fund and a treasury management DAO, and growing that ecosystem out also gives more opportunity for the community to come in and form their own sub-DAO. So definitely that, formalizing that process, working with other teams to figure out how they've sort of rolled that out, and then, yeah, getting some standard structure around this sub-DAO world that we're hopefully moving to.
Yeah, in our case, like, I think our DAO is pretty nascent, so I have more short-term objectives. Like, I guess if we manage to hit the market and get the DAO kind of deploying and operating the protocol successfully, that's going to be a pretty huge milestone for our project.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, I've kind of touched on it a bunch. It's making it so it's easy for any DAO to start. So like right now, DAOs have been huge into DeFi. Like we're at DeFi Day today, but it will be awesome to see this start actually move over to more of like our real life, like our real world use cases, and start seeing it in more aspects of our life other than just crypto and DeFi, and having it expand and being able to make it easy for teams to be able to do that is what we're really focused on.
Okay, perfect. No, thank you all for attending today. It was, I hope for everyone here, an interesting topic. And yeah, hope that we see a lot more DAOs, like proper DAOs, actual DAOs, like the three of you, appear in the near future. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you all with the next panel.